Okay, so this month's lesson plan is really thinking about the hips and how the movement of the hips affects the trunk and how the movement of the hips gives strength to the trunk and vice versa as well. So that will make more sense as we go through. So starting off, my feet are cheekbone distance apart. I'm going to think about traveling up to the spots directly above my head on the ceiling and then turning my heels in, so I'm in my turnout position. I want you to think about your foot centers, so the big base of the big toe, the base of the little toe, and the heels. We're pressing down equally through there. Really think about your midline, so really glue together through your heels, knees, and right up into the inner thigh area. Keeping those heels glued together, I want you to imagine you're trying to pull the inside of your ankle bones apart. So then you can really feel that sense wrapping round into the bottom and up into the tummy area. So just relax everything again. We'll just do that again. So pressing into your foot centers, the heels are really glued together. Just checking the time. And then we're pulling the ankle bones apart. And you really can feel that connection. So from here, we're relevating again up towards the ceiling. So imagine you're sliding up a wall behind you, really showing those ankle bones off. Not the ankle bones, the front of the feet, sorry. And lowering back down again. And again. So the ankle bones are still pulling apart whilst the heels are pulling together as we relevate up. Actually does help with the balance a bit. And lowering back down. And again, press up, squeezing your midline together and lower. Let's do two more. Lovely. From there, we're going to come down into our Pilates squats or our pliés. So we're not coming down as far as a normal squat. We're going to plie down, so equal fold at the hips, knees, and ankles, and then squeeze back up through your midline. And again, lowering down. Think about pressing through the heel and squeezing the legs together, growing really tall towards the ceiling. There we go. And squeeze. We're going to come down further now. So we come down into that plie. Keep coming down until the restriction around the ankle means you have to lift the heels. And we're sliding down that wall behind us. Then you're lifting up through the pelvis until you can put the heels down and then zipping back up. So we lower down into our plie, going as low as we can, really feeling the stretch through the calves. And then when we can't get any further, those heels have to lift as we lower down into our grand plie. And then heels back onto the floor and squeezing back together again. So we're imagining that sense that we're sliding down that wall behind us so the trunk stays looking upright. We squeeze, heels down, lift. Last one here. Bending through the knees. The heels lift. As we press back up, heels down. You're taking your arms folded in front of your shoulders. The head is going to lower down between the arms. And we're going to roll down, keeping our head in between the arms. So we're rolling down to the upper back, middle back, and lower back. Feeling that stretch through the backs of the legs. And we're rolling back up, restacking through your lower, middle, and upper back. So we're still thinking of that cue, squeezing the heels together whilst the ankle bones pull apart. So my head rolls down in between my arms, and then I carry on rolling down, keeping my head between my arms, and I'm going down as far as I can, and then I'm going to keep my head in between my arms as I roll up. Once my arms are parallel with the floor, then my head is going to restack. And again, chin rolls in towards the chest, head between the arms, and then my spine follows
as I roll down through my upper back, middle back, and lower back. Keeping my head in between my arms, I roll up. And then I'm parallel with the floor. I restack. So we're going to do those 3 movements combined now with the arms folded. So we're coming up into our releve, again sliding up and down that wall behind you and lower down. We're coming into our plie. Once the ankles won't bend any further, the heels lift off the floor, and then we slide up the wall behind us and we lift tall, and then we roll down. So chin tucks in, head between the arms, we roll down through the upper back, middle back, and lower back, and then we roll back. Head stays in between the arms until we're parallel, and then up. And again, we squeeze from our midline. Imagine those ankle bones pulling apart as we lift up, but the heels stay glued together. Whoops. And then the heels come down into our plie. We can't go any further. Coming down. And then we're pressing back up, heels back into the floor. Then press through those heel foot centers to stand. And roll down. Lovely, last one of those. So pressing up, and then heels lower, plie, sliding further down that wall, back up, heels down and squeeze, head rolls down, upper back, middle back, and lower back. And then we're resacking through the lower, middle and upper, and then head articulates up. The arms rest down beside you. We're going to roll down and then come down onto our mat. So from here, feet are now in parallel, lengthening through the back of my neck as I roll down, keeping the weight in the front of the feet, upper, middle, and lower. Down onto your hands. And then you're going to scooch round and into high sitting. So I want you to imagine the big knuckle of your big toes is stuck together, and your legs are very much glued together. So imagine both of your legs are only one leg. You're going to really squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. I want you to reach forwards and then draw the arms back into your chest as though you're rowing your oars back towards your chest. Okay, so squeezing the inside of my big toe knuckles together and the inside of the leg, the inside of the knees. I'm going to roll off my sit bones in my C shape. Now just go down to as far as you can control without really shaking. My arms are going to press out with the palms behind me, or palms looking backwards. The arms are going to press behind me as I reach up and over, getting my nose as close to my knees as possible. The arms come back round to the lovely shoulder mobility, and I'm reaching for my toes. And then I'm going to pull the arms back to the chest with those oars, rolling back into my C shape. Again, press the palms behind you. And then as you press the arms back, we roll up and over, keeping your nose as close to your knees as possible. You're going to bring those arms up and around towards the toes. And again, we're going to row the arms back to the chest, rolling off those sit bones into my C-shaped curve. I'm taking the arms out. I'm pressing my palms behind me as I press my head in the opposite direction. Then the arms are coming up and round, the head stays low, reaching for the fingertips. And again, row back into your C-shaped curve. Down, press the arms back, press the arms behind you as you roll up and over, nose towards the knees, staying low as you press the arms up towards the ceiling, and then draw them back round in line with the toes. One more of those. Draw your oars back. Roll off your sit bones, squeezing the middle of the legs together, pressing the arms out behind you, rolling up and over as you press the hands back. Nose stays towards the knees as we lift the arms up towards the ceiling, round towards the toes, and then we're going to rebuild back into our nice upright position. Lovely, well done. So from there, we're coming down into our hundreds. So I'm going to give us two different options. One is in the C-shaped curve with the upper body lifted, and the other is with the upper body down on the floor. So both are a real challenge. So let's bring the knees in towards the chest, show it in the picture. And from there, nose comes in towards the knees. And I'm just going to think about rolling back off my sit bones. And then the feet are going to slide back as I roll down with control onto my back. But I'm going to keep the nose up towards the knees. So that's option one. Option two is to keep the feet where they are and the upper body comes down onto the mat, okay? So here we're going to do the same thing with the arms as if you're in your C-shaped curve. So you're really trying to keep that nice upper body lift, nose towards the knees. We're going to release the arms and we're going to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out. Halfway. So imagine you're trying to slide the back of the shoulders and the head up the wall behind you if you're in this position. Last breath, cycle in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. You're going to take the hands around the back of the thighs, press the thighs into the hands, and roll up. Beautiful. So, rolling back prep. Again, we're going to have the hands around the front of the knees, a bit lower than the knees actually, and I'm going to find my C-shaped curve. So I am rolling off my sit bones and rolling down, and I'm going to let my feet slide back to me and pull with my hands as I'm pulling, using my knees with my arms as I roll down with control. And then I'm going to push my knees into my hands as I roll back up with control. So it's all about the push and the pull with the arms and the legs. So again, I roll into my C-shaped curve. Make sure you're not collapsing down through that head. And then I'm rolling back, I'm pulling. I'm pressing my knees into my hands and I'm pulling back with my hands to get that control. And I'm just going to let the feet slide towards me. And again, I'm going to push my knees into my hands and I roll back. So a couple more of those. Rolling the waistband down into the mat. Pushing the knees into the hands. The head stays up. And I'm going to push into my hands, as I roll back up. Last one of those. I'm pulling my hands into my knees as I roll down. And then I'm pushing my knees into my hands as I roll up. And then we're going to finish in that lowered position with the head still lifted. Nice. So my head is still lifted. And I'm going to think about my mini roll that we've done before, but I want to add a little cue in. So I want you to think about lifting up. Lifting up under the back of the leggings. I'm going to lift up to initiate that roll and then roll back. So I'm rolling from my waistband to the middle of the t-shirt.
So when I roll towards my head, I'm lifting up under the back of my leggings. So lifting up, opposite direction. So you really get that sense of that nice C-shaped curve through the spine. If you think about lifting through the back of the leggings. 2 more here. Yeah, and then we're going to finish here. We're going to lower down through the upper body. You're going to take one leg long and lower that leg down. And then we're going to take the other leg long and lower that leg down too. Stay there for a sec. I need to turn the spotlights off a bit in my eyes. Okay, so from there, we're coming into our roll-ups. So just keep going. So turn these lights off. You're lying flat and you're squeezing the inside of your big toe knuckles together. Too dark, I think so. And the midline. So again, think of your magnets. The inside of the ankles, knees, right up into the groin area, and we're taking our arms up overhead for our roll-ups or rollovers. The arms come overhead, chin rolls in towards the chest. Think about the arms lifting up to the ceiling. So we're not collapsing forwards, we're reaching up and over as we reach far or even further than the toes. And then we're staying low as we think about this movement coming from the hips as we roll down to the upper, or lower, sorry, middle and upper back, arms up overhead. So again, the arms start reaching up, but rather than coming forwards, we're reaching up, up towards the ceiling, hollowing through those abdominals and reaching towards the toes, staying low. So imagine we're under a really low ceiling. This movement should come from the hips as we roll back, lower, middle, and upper. And again, we reach up towards the ceiling, up, 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 squeeze the inside of the heels together, the inside of the knees, the inside of the thighs, and think about the hips rolling open, trying to get that waistband down to the mat. Let's do 2 more. Breathe in, breathe out. Lovely. From there, we're going to take the right leg, and you're going to have it in a tabletop position. The left leg is long, and the ankle on the long leg is flexed, nice and strongly. And this long leg is really pressing down into the mat. Your arms are going to be beside you, and again, they're pressing into the mat. So think about your coat hanging on your t-shirt and how that's nice and open, so the shoulder, chest is open. We're going to take our knee, and you're going to imagine you're drawing a big circle. So we're going to draw that circle over towards the other hip, down and round. And again, you're going to breathe in for half the circle and out for half the circle. So the hip on the circling side will lift, but I want you to think about the rib cage staying on the mat. One more. Lift the leg up towards the ceiling, and with the heel, you are lowering back down. Okay, switching the legs over, let's point the toes on the other side and in to the one leg tabletop. Again, hips are going to stay melted down into the mat. Press through your arms, and we're going to come over and back around. Draw nice big circles, getting that lovely mobility in the hip. I want you to think about the thigh bone feeling heavy into a socket. Round and back. Really think about planting that long leg into the floor, keeping the heel nice and flexed. 2 more. reaching the toes up towards the ceiling, heel comes down first, as we slowly lower down to the floor. Okay, so this next one is a preparation for a move called the corkscrew, and it's just to make us think about rotation in our hips. So we're going to hug the knees in towards our chest, and then you're just going to let the knees come out a bit further. I'm going to press, just going to scooch down a tiny bit. I'm going to press again, my arms down beside me, and I want you to really think about that sense of pressing down through your arms throughout this movement. Just make sure the back of the shoulders stay on the mat. So from there, we are going to take the knees over to the left, right? But if I take my knees over to the left, one knee is much higher than the other knee. So if you do that, then it becomes a side bend. So we don't want that. What we want to do is we want to take the knees over to the left, but keep the knees level. So to do that, we have to lift the right hip under the right hip. So I'm going to lift under my right hip and keep my knees level as they come over to the side. And then I'm going to roll back into the middle. Then I'm going to lift under this thigh to keep the knees level as I lift and reach the thigh away, and the knees move over to the opposite side. And then I'm lowering back onto the mat. So it's that sense of lifting and lengthening that thigh bone to keep it in line with the other knee, and then lower. So we lift under the thigh bone and both the knees float to the side, and we lower back down. One more on each side. Ribs should stay down on the mat. Lovely. And lower back into the middle. From there, we're going to bring our right knee in towards us, and we're going to stretch the other leg away. But I don't want it low here because I want us thinking about our C-shaped curve. So we're going to be light. We're going to practice being light on the tailbone rather than heavy tailbone. So we're coming here, and you've got your two options. So option one is down here with your upper body. Option two is to come into that C-shaped curve, so nose towards the knee, and we're going to switch through the legs. So I'm going to breathe in for 2 and out for 2. So my elbows are wide. I want to keep my knees looking up towards the ceiling. So I'm checking my toes, and I'm checking my toes aren't in a turnout position. So the inside seam of my leggings are communicating, staying strongly pulled towards each other. Keep going with your breathing. Two more breaths. One more breath. Bring both knees in. Take the hands around the back of the thighs. Press into the thighs and roll up into sitting. Well done. One that's a little bit different here. So we're going to start this movement with bent knees, I think, just to make life slightly easier as we're introducing it. So I'm going to, I'm going to roll off my sit bones slightly. So I'm coming into that C-shaped curve. And then I'm just going to practice lifting one knee in and then lowering back down. And then the other side, we lift one knee in and then we lower back down. So moving on, we're going to lift one knee in and then we're going to join with the other. We're on that balance point just off the pelvis, and then down and down. We're going to start with the other side. So keeping that lovely C-shaped curve, we're going to lift and lift the other leg and then lower and lower, and lift, and lift. Hold the balance and lower, and lower, starting with the other side again. So just alternate which leg you start from. Lower and lower. So we breathe in as we lift, and out as we lower. Breathe in, and out. Perfect. Rocking back onto your sit bones, you're going to take the legs wide, we're coming into saw. So really think about sitting on top of those sits bones so that the shoulders are over the pelvis. Taking the arms out, palms are looking down towards the floor. I've got my coat hanger in my t-shirt, so my chest is nice and open. So I'm going to really get that sense of lifting up out of my pelvis, growing tall towards the ceiling, creating space through those vertebrae. I'm going to twist, and then I'm going to think about bringing my shoulder down in between my legs to really get that nice side bend. And then I'm going to take myself out of that side bend and I'm going to rotate. And then we rotate to the opposite side and my shoulder is reaching between my legs. And then coming back up and rotating. So it shows us our true side bend. As we rotate, the shoulder drives down between the legs and up and into the middle. And again, we rotate. Over, back, and in. One more in each direction. Rotate, over, back, and rotate. Last one, rotate, side bend, back up, and in to the middle. From there, you're going to draw your legs together. We're going to swizzle the legs behind us. And we're coming down fully onto our fronts. The hand's going to be underneath the shoulders. And here, I want you to really focus, the elbows are in towards my side. Your midline is drawn together. So I want you to think about gluing those knees together. Yeah, and then the head is down on the mat. The thing I want you to focus on here, for the main part of this exercise, is pressing your pubic bone so far into the mat that the bony bits of the hips hover away from the mat. So just relax completely, let everything melt back into the mat. And now press your pubic bone into the mat and take those bony bits of your hips away from the mat. So this is what we want to keep. So we're coming up into our upper back extension, but only come as far as you can without those bony bits of your hips coming down. So it won't be as far. So my nose is going to push my imaginary marble towards the front end of my mat. My gaze is looking forwards but down, and I'm going to press up, but only to there, because otherwise the bony bits of my hips drop back down into the mat. And I really want to focus on the extension of the hips. And I'm going to roll back down and lower. So I'm not going to sacrifice the extension of my hips for my upper body coming up further. So I'm pressing my pubic bone into the mat, and I've really got that lift. My nose rolls the marble forwards, and I'm picking up into extension, but it's low. And then drawing that down. And again, two more. You can press into your hands under your shoulders. Last one. And lowering back down. Just take your arms down beside your thighs. Turn your head to one side and take a couple of breaths there. And then turn your head to the other side. Lovely. From there, we've got a little transition here. So curl your toes under, Take your hands under your shoulders. You're going to press up so that you come onto your knees. My toes are curled, and then I'm going to press up into my plank position here. Then from there, hopefully your feet are on the mat, you're going to take a big lunge forwards with one leg. So this leg is between my hands, so use the back of your arm to pull that leg through if needs be. I'm going to lower my back leg to the mat. I'm going to take the hands either side of the knee, and I'm just going to release the front of my hips. So I'm driving myself forwards as far as I can, keeping my front heel down into the mat. I'm heavy into this front knee to really let the back leg open more. So driving yourself as far forwards as you can, keeping that front heel down. Lovely, we're going to lower the hands back down, curl the toes of that back leg, peel the knee away from the floor, back into that plank position, nice and long, then taking the other side, big lunge forwards there, and use that arm to bring it forwards if you need to. Lower down through the knee, uncurl the toes, hands either side of the knee, and again we're driving ourselves forwards as far as we can, keeping that front heel down. Really trying to open up that back leg. From there, taking the hands down. Again, curl the back toes, peel the knee, back into that plank position. And we're going to bend through the elbows to lower ourselves down. Good stuff. Okay, from there, last one on our fronts here. The hands are going to be stacked on top of each other. You've also got the option of being in a props position here if you'd rather. But we're going to start off with the hands laid on top of each other and the forehead on the hands. So this is our one leg kick. We're gluing the knees together and we're going to pulse the heel in toward the bottom. But I want you to imagine that in the back of your knee is a pencil. So you're kicking around the pencil. And as you're kicking your heel in, you're imagining that your knee is reaching towards the back end of the mat to really get that elongation through the hip. And then we're lowering back down. So the other side, that pencil is in the crease of the knee. And as I kick in, the knee is pulling towards the back of the mat. And I'm lowering back down again. So we're still really concentrating on the midline, on the knees gluing together. And I curl around that pencil and my knee draws towards the end of the mat. So pulse, 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 and lower. Other side, kicking over the pencil, knee drawing away from the bottom. Breathe in and down. One more on each side. So you're really thinking about the knee drawing towards the end of the mat as the heel comes in towards the bottom. Lovely. Rolling onto your side. All right, we're coming into our side series. So we'll be on our propped hands, pressing through equally each finger pad and thumb pad of the hand, thinking about that inside seam of the t-shirt lifting away from the mat. My toes are just in front of me, so I look down and can see them. Keeping the inside seam, we're going to lift up, we're going to point the toes, we're going to come high and then down. So we lift and lower, but we only lift as high as we can until we lose that inside seam. Lift up and down. And we're going to lift to hip height and we're going to come forwards and backwards with the heel. So let's concentrate on trying to keep the pelvis nice and still. Here. Right, forwards with my toes and back with my heel. Forwards and backwards. One more in each direction. Back in line with the other leg, and we're going to circle. Inside seam. Let's change direction. Breathe in for 2 and out for 2. Last one. Nice. Lower the legs down, back onto your back, forward shoulder bridge. Again, we're going to really think about the hips as we draw up into our shoulder bridge. So we're going to really think about the hips moving and the t-shirt staying heavy. So the hips are doing all the lovely movement, really getting that extension of the hips. So we can press our imaginary watch straps down into the mat. Everything is nice and long. The heels are coming under the knees. And I want you to think about the hips drawing back to look at the nose. As we pick up through the lower middle, t-shirt stays really heavy. And opening up through the front of the leggings, gluing my inside seam of my leggings together. T-shirt is heavy, but the hips are really working to look back to the wall behind me. T-shirt is heavy, it's going to roll back down. And I'm coming back into my neutral pelvis. So my legs are squeezing together. My pubic bone is going to roll towards my nose, really feeling those abdominals. And my t-shirt staying heavy, so I pick up and my front of my leggings is looking or pointing towards the wall behind me. I'm working really hard to try and glue the inside seam of my leggings together. And then I'm going to soften through my breastbone, back into my neutral pelvis. 2 more of those. T-shirt stays heavy, we're really getting some lovely flexion and then extension of the hips. Just make sure you're not bearing down through the head. The head shouldn't be really, really heavy into the mat. It should feel nice and light. And then soften through the breastbone. Back into neutral pelvis. Last one of those. So just nicely pressing my hands, my arms down onto the mat. Pubic bone draws towards the nose, picking up front of the leggings, looking back towards the wall behind me. Squeeze the inside seam of your leggings. And soften down through the breastbone, middle back and lower back. Oh, let's bring one knee in for a hug and just lengthen out through the other leg just for a sec. Take a breath also here. And then change those legs over, so just stay lying down for a sec. Yes. Nearly there, nearly there. Bring both knees in for a hug towards your chest. And let's just circle the knees out. And then change direction. Take the hands around the front of the knees, just a bit lower. Nose draws in towards the knees. And again, I want you to think about that pushing of the hands, pushing of the legs into the hands. So roll yourself up into sitting. Lovely. So for this, we are at two options. So the first is that we're going to be in our C-shaped curve. Yeah, that we're going to be in our C-shaped curve. And we're going to roll backwards with the arms lifted. The second option is really, really similar, but we're going to be sitting tall. You're going to roll very slightly off the sit bones, but then we're going to hinge back with a straight back and then back. So actually, I would take the feet a bit further away from you.
Let's squeeze the legs together again. Okay, so thinking of that first cue we talked about, inside of the heels are squeezing together. You can still think about the inside of the ankle bones pulling apart. I'm going to lift my hands in line or on high diagonal towards the ceiling. And this is where I've got my two options. So option one is I roll off my sit bones. So I'm in my C-shaped curve, and I'm going to roll back. And I'm going to roll forwards, keeping my C-shaped curve. Then I'm going to roll back. I'll roll forwards. Option two was keeping your straight back. You roll off the sit bones ever so slightly, tiny re-roll, but then I have my flat back and I hinge back. And I hinge forwards. So hinge back. And I hinge forwards. Both is very difficult. Maybe that's option one. So I'm rolling off my sit bones with my C-shaped curve. I'm going to roll back, squeezing the inside seam of the legs, and I'm going to roll forwards. So it's working on that upper C curve from this option. Ooh. Last two. In. And breathe out. Sit tall on those sit bones, bringing those knees or pulling those knees in towards you. The last exercise. So we're going to roll onto our fronts. We're going to take the arms in capital L shapes beside us. So I want your elbows in line with your shoulders and then your wrists in line with your elbows. I'm going to glue my legs together. My forehead is down on the mat. So this is just a lovely mobility exercise. I want you to think about rolling that marble above your nose towards the end of the mat. And we're picking up through the breastbone, one rib at a time, and the belly button. And I'm rolling back down, belly button, rib cage, and head. And again, breathe in to prepare. As you breathe out, the marble is pushed away by the nose. Rolling up breastbone, rib one at a time, belly button. And rolling back down. Last one. Pressing through my hands. Okay. Just taking the arms down beside your thighs. Just turn our head to one side again. Just let your eyes close. A couple of breaths here. Turn the head to the opposite side. Let those shoulders collapse down onto the floor. On their hands from under the shoulders, looking forwards into your mat. We're going to press up into 4-point kneeling. Bring those knees in, curl the toes into your little crouch. Just bring the head down to the knees. Let's see if you get those feet really close together so the big knuckle of the big toes are squeezing together, touching. Think about the inside of the knees, up into the inside of the inner thighs, glued together as we straighten through the legs. We're going to take the toes out, so we're in our V stance. And I want you to think about the heels glued together, the ankle bones pulling apart. Again, as we roll up. Whoa. Nice. From there, we're going to finish with our warm-up combination. So we're going to relevate up towards the ceiling. And we're going to lower down. We're coming down to our plie, and when we can't get any further, we're sliding down that wall.
Pressing back up through the pelvis, heels back onto the mat, and then squeezing back up tall into standing. We're rolling down, shin rolls in towards the chest, rolling down to our upper back, middle back, and lower back. Keep squeezing your heels together, nice and heavy. And then we're rolling back up through the lower, middle, and upper back. So one more of those to finish. Releve up towards the ceiling, keeping the heels glued together. And then we lower the heels into our plie. Any more ankle mobility as we lower down. Squeeze through the inside seam as we press up tall into standing. Chin rolls in towards the chest as we roll down through the upper back, middle back, and lower back. And then rolling all the way up. Really enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you next week.